And I've found it really interesting over my last 10, 15 years of, being a published songwriter, is that in a room, there's always roles to play. Sometimes there's an editor, sometimes there's a vibe guy, sometimes there's somebody who's just like a pure lyricist or a track person. And I like going into a room, doing a little bit of all of that and just kind of being the chameleon, and whatever's not being done, do that role. Um, but it is interesting. It's like it's a study of people when you get into a room with somebody to see what their strengths are, where they're comfortable.
What exactly, like, where do they put their energy and where do they thrive?
The Desert Tiger Podcast.
All right, Ambush, and today we are joined by an acclaimed country singer, a songwriter whose 2022 EP, Six Songs to Midnight, debuted at #1 on iTunes. His sophomore single found recently went platinum. He recently also returned from an international tour which featured some incredible dates in Australia, and he also just happened to release a killer new single entitled Girl Drinks a Beer. We are here to talk about all of these incredible things with the amazing Dan Davidson. How's it going today, Dan?
Hey, buddy. Nice intro. That makes me feel good. I like all these ego strokes. I'll take it.
Ooh, hey, gotta bring the hype up, Gotta bring
Yeah,
the
I like it.
energy.
Need a hype guy.
Hey, if you ever need anyone to introduce you live, just, you know where to find me.
All right. Yeah.
Fantastic. And of course, like I mentioned, you just happened to release a new single featuring the incredible Australian country music star Travis Collins. The song is Girl Drinks a Beer. That's where I want to kick things off, my friend. Of course, you're ending this year strong with this track. When exactly did it begin to take shape for you?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one. Like, I wrote the song a while back with a couple friends in Nashville, Canadian guys living down there, and one guy was working down there. Um, and yeah, it just kind of came together. I did a demo for it, and I really loved the demo. And of course, we were kind of like mid-pandemic at this point, and we were all looking for ways to get creative and to like keep moving the train forward. We had to keep the story going, and I got involved with this thing where the CCMA, the Canadian Country Music Association, set up a bunch of Zoom meetings with the CMAA, Canadian or Country Music Association of Australia. And so basically, it was like this crazy speed dating industry Zoom party thing where you get switched out into these different rooms every 5 minutes. And so I met like 50 artists, and Travis Collins was one of them. And he was just like a guy that I kind of hit it off with. And, we have similar kind of direction and similar fans. And he's he's a guitar player, and I'm a guitar player. I've studied a lot of guitar. And I don't know, it's just a guy that kind of hit it off with. And so I kind of kept that in the back of my mind as I was, I've been developing Australia as a market for myself. I had this song that I liked. We were kind of headed into Australian summer and Canadian winter. So I was thinking like, it's a perfect time to, make Canadians forget that it's winter time and kick off the summer for Australians. So why don't I add a friend of mine on the song? So I called up Travis and sent him the tune, and they're like, yeah, this is great. Let's do it. So it just came together so easily. He recorded his own vocals, sent it to me. And this is the first Dan Davidson song that I've ever self-produced. So it was a lot of firsts on this one.
Wow, you've produced for other artists, but this is the first one of your own, hey?
Yeah. I've done production on my own stuff, but I've never top to bottom produced a song for myself. I don't know if it's just like a fear, like it's nice to get another set of ears on something, and it's just a bit of an uncertainty when it's your own project. It's strange. It's like a mindset switch.
Well, like you said, nice to have a different set of ears who maybe hears things a little bit differently than you would, right?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I love collaborating. That's like a big part of what I do in music is finding a way to make something better by adding a brain on it. And I found that out early on in my music career. When I was starting out, I was in a band, right? And in a band, it's just like it's us against the world. We're the band. It's everything is us going out. But as we worked more in the Canadian music industry and got a little bit bigger, we started collaborating and started realizing that when you're collaborating with somebody, you're kind of gaining a percentage rather than thinking of it as losing a percentage.
Hmm.
Because, you're coming up with something that you wouldn't have come up with without somebody who's outside and sort of objectively looking in.
Hmm. And sometimes you'll see like from a fan perspective and like from some people you'll see, oh, like why do you need so many songwriters or otherwise? And it's like, well, collaboration, and like sometimes you just happen to hit it off, like you say, with other people, and then the vibe is just right, and what you guys can create together is so much more different than what you would create alone.
Yeah, and I find like I know what I do, what my go-tos are for creative stuff. Like I know my guitar crutches, I know my lyrical crutches, and I know my general tendency in when it comes to melody. So if I'm in a session with somebody, even if that person doesn't actually get a song that, it doesn't actually have a word that they said go on the song, they could just be in the room influencing the vibe, and that would still be a massive plus for me. And I've found it really interesting over my last 10, 15 years of, being a published songwriter, is that in a room, there's always roles to play. Sometimes there's an editor. Sometimes there's a vibe guy. Sometimes there's somebody who's just like a pure lyricist or a track person. And I like going into a room, doing a little bit of all of that, and just kind of being the chameleon, and whatever's not being done, do that role. Um, but it is interesting. It's like it's a study of people when you get into a room with somebody to see what their strengths are, where they're comfortable.
Hmm. What exactly, like, where do they put their energy and where do they thrive?
Yeah, and there's some songwriters out there that have huge cuts, and I'm pretty sure that some of them are just vibe guys. So they'll just go into a room and everybody loves them. The energy's great. Everyone's smiling, and you feel like you made a friend. And usually at the end of those sessions, it's a great song.
Absolutely. And then also shout out to technology because, I mean, like we said, being able to be in a room, but of course, the last 2 years, not really much of a opportunity. So, shout out to things like Zoom that's connecting us right now. And also shout out to the CCMAs and I can't remember what the Australian Music
The
Awards was, but
CMAA, yeah.
CMAAs, but either way, shout out to both of those entities for like seeing the need for songwriting potential and like filling that gap and creating the opportunity for like, because before, for you to get inside of the room with the Australian based Travis Collins or like 50 other Australian people, like you have to go to Australia. And like, it's
Yeah.
so much easier to do so once you have a network and all of these other things, right?
Totally, man. And that it's crazy how things can snowball. So that from those meetings, I also met a festival promoter and told him my little elevator pitch, and we kind of kept in touch. And from there, it snowballed into me getting my first Australian festival, which turned into my first Australian tour, which meant I was meeting all these people that had only existed on Zoom in real life. And now I'm writing with some of these other artists in Australia, and I'm heading back for a second tour coming up. So it's weird how it all starts. Like it basically all just came from being involved in this weird little Zoom conversation.
And of course, you just happened to mention there, you just happened to do your first tour of Australia. And I know this year you also had the opportunity to hit places like the UK, France, Spain, I believe. So what has it been like to, after sitting inside of a room for 2 years, like not being able to travel at all, to like suddenly you're getting out to all of these different places, some of them for like the first time ever, right?
Yeah, it's so great. Like this, in the last 6 months, I've been to 5 countries, so it's pretty insane, really. I kind of thought when my days of touring and rock and roll ended, my international touring would also be done. But here I am, I'm like 8 countries in now. So, but yeah, it's been great getting back to it. Like I was traveling a lot before COVID, and then when COVID hit, like it's weird. You kind of get back into this new normal, and for me, it's always like intimidating when I have to travel because I have a family and I don't want to put my wife out and make my kids feel uncomfortable and things like that. So I kind of got used to just being at home all the time and doing all my work in the basement. So it was a little bit tricky to kickstart it back into my regular routine of making sure that I'm playing lots and making cool content. But I mean, my family gets it. They know how it works and they know what the job is. And still, most of the time, I am home. But the odd time, I do have to take some big swings and get out there and get on the road.
Hey, it's a part of trying to make a career of this, right?
Yeah, yeah. You know what's so funny? Like I always say this to my musician friends who are dads, but it's like when people find out that you're a touring musician or a professional musician, they always kind of think that you're absent for your kids. But I think I had way more daytime hours with my kids than most 9 to 5 dads do. Because like before they were in school, I was with them all day, and then I would go play on the weekends or whatever. And so yeah, I really liked being able to be musician dad for young kids because yeah, like I said, I got so much time during the day with them, and then during COVID, I was I was like Mr. Mom. I had like all their friends were coming over. It was full daddy daycare mode.
Hey man, it's sometimes you got to step up, right? I've been on the road for a while, and finally it's like, you know what? It's your turn.
And I love it. It's so much fun for me, and it's interesting trying to expose my kids to music and not pushing at them because like I'll play them all my demos all the time, and if they have something that sticks in their head or they ask about something a few days later, I'm like, well, okay, if a 5-year-old remembers it, it's got to be good.
So, with that being said, do your daughters have a favorite Dan Davidson track?
uh, yeah, they like, what's so funny, they do ask for a lot about the demos that I make because I play them in the car, but they love the songs with all the music videos because they have more of an attachment to to that kind of a thing. So when they were really little, it was Found and Barn Burner were the big ones, and they got to make an appearance in the Say We Did video and the These Are My People video. So yeah, it's pretty cool. When they get to see that they're a part of this whole thing, it's sticky for them.
That's kind of cool how, you get to include them inside of your project. And as you continue to grow as an artist, you can see their growth as human beings too.
Yeah, yeah. And so far, I'm kind of holding on to Cool Dad, but I think my time is limited in that zone. We'll see.
Ooh, hold on to it as long as you can, my friend.
Yeah, they're still young. Wait till they're teenagers.
That's take every little moment. You got those COVID years of being stay-at-home dad. I mean, make you appreciate it a little bit more then, right?
Keep those memories safe. Yeah.
And of course, you just happened to mention one of your other tracks there, Found, which happened to recently go platinum. I believe you released the song all the way back in 2016, so about 6 years here now. Suddenly, boom, continuing to get airplay, continuing to make noise. So what is it like to have, after all this time, your sophomore single go platinum?
It's a freakish occurrence. Like it just doesn't really happen that often, especially to indie artists. This I don't even without promoting it, the song gets 1 million streams a year on Spotify alone. So it's like it's just this little engine that keeps going for me, which is fantastic. It was the number one selling Canadian song for half a minute, and it was it was a big wedding song, and I think that's what really perpetuated it because it's not a sappy song. It's a fun get drunk fall in love kind of a song. So that really made it a really, I don't know, just a stubborn song that wouldn't go away. And yeah, so it went gold in 2018 or 17, I think, and then platinum this year. It's just amazing. So I'm gonna plan to try and release it in Australia. I know it's lots of years later, but it's gonna be new to them, and hopefully it just keeps doing what it does.
Hey, I mean, like you said, new market, you're going there soon. Might as well get them used to a couple more songs so that time you hit that second tour, you've got people in the crowd not just drinking drinks beer. They've got a couple Dan Davidson tracks already in their back pocket singing along in the crowd.
Yeah, what was so cool about going down there is that there was people singing along to songs that they had no business singing along to. So I think they thought it was interesting that somebody from North America was putting in a lot of effort to be there. So that was cool. I hope that continues because that it really pumped my tires, and it was fun, and it just like inspiring to see like halfway around the world, a place I've never been, people are actively searching out the music. So it's really good.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. And of course, just mentioning there again, you are going back for a second tour. What does the future here potentially hold here? I know the beginning of 2023. What do the fans what can they expect from Dan Davidson here?
Well, I've been locking myself in this room a lot, in my studio room, just writing lots and trying to make sure I have the new record ready to go. I have about 5 new songs done. So yeah, I'm just kind of starting to reach out and take some meetings about the new album and how I can best get it out to the world and more fans. So doing a lot of that these days, but also, I'm working on a small documentary with a filmmaker friend of mine who's got the office next door. We does all my branding and videos, and we travel the world together a lot. So doing that, and then I have a showcase in South by Southwest in Austin, Texas, in March. It's just just piling it on here. But and then after that, it's just all focusing on the best shows that any Canadian country music artist can play is the festival circuit in the summertime. And I got a couple really good ones coming down the pipes, and I'm really excited to kind of get into the east part of Canada a little bit this summer. And yeah, man, it's just the grind, putting out content. I just put out a ridiculous Christmas video you should check out. Every year I'm starting to do like remake a trailer from an 80s Christmas movie, and they're just terrible, but good terrible.
As someone who watched the Die Hard one this morning, you absolutely should go and watch all of these. And you should also be going ahead and following Dan on your favorite social media so you can stay up to date with that new music, with those upcoming festival and tour dates. Dan, what would you say is the best platform to connect with you on?
My favorite is Instagram for sure. Could be my age, but yeah, I love when people reach out. Every DM I always respond to, and wherever you want to find me, it's Dan Davidson. And I'm trying to be cool and be a TikToker too. But man, it's just a generational thing. I think maybe I'm getting too old.
Trying. You're a pretty creative guy, though. You're a pretty creative guy, so I think you'll get there.
Hopefully people go check it out and see what I'm up to. They can tell me if I'm doing a good job.
Hey, I'll leave some links in the description to the show below. Make it nice and easy for the listeners to go ahead and do that. Check out the tracks as well, as you absolutely should. All right, Dan, I've got a couple more questions for you here. We're going to dive a little bit behind the man, the person here. So, of course, I want to know, what is something that you are thankful for inside of this world?
Oh man. Well, yeah, I'm really thankful that I have a lot of family support, because it's really tough to do this job. Being away and having terrible scheduling and last minute decisions and things like that. That makes it really hard. So I'm really lucky that I've got parents and in-laws and sisters and stuff close by, because we lean on our family a lot. We're really close. So yeah, I mean, that's probably a big one for me. But I'm just, I'm just thankful that I've got a lot of really close friends that believe in the project. It's, I get to make music with my friends for a living and travel and do cool things. So I think if I can just continue to do this, I feel like I've hacked the system.
Heck yeah, absolutely. So when you're not touring the world and trying to be a cool dad as long as possible, what other interests, what other hobbies does Dan Davidson have?
Well, I'm like a pretty diehard Oilers fan. I've been lots of Oiler games. I used to be the backup anthem singer for the Oilers for a time.
Dang.
So I love doing that. I love I'm focused on fitness a lot. I do a lot of working out and trying to make sure that my body doesn't fall apart. Things like that, man. In the summertime it's a little different. In the winter it's tough because I'm sitting in my cave and trying to be creative, but I don't get to play hockey as much as I used to. But in the summertime I love to golf, and I love to get out to the cabin and go canoeing and just get out on the lake. Northern Manitoba, it's a beautiful spot to be.
Heck yeah, you enjoy yourself some nature.
That's right.
Heck yeah. So you mentioned the lake there. Are you a fisherman?
No, I love fishing. I don't think I'm particularly good at it, but I love sitting on a boat with a whole bunch of beer and some family or friends and just having a good day.
Hey, the good times is where it's at.
Yeah, but it is great fishing up there in northern Saskatchewan, northern Manitoba. It's some of the best fish fries you'll ever go to.
Mm-hmm. I can attest to this. Northern Saskatchewan. I'm gonna shout out Jan Lake right now. One of my favorite spots for show.
Nice.
Hey, all right. And of course, I've got one last question here. So, of course, we've been talking about this past year as a musician, all of the things that have come with it, the successes, the highs, all of these wonderful things to kick back, getting back out into the world. But through this year, of course, there's always opportunity to grow as a person otherwise. So through the process of this last year of being a musician and crafting these songs and everything else, how has this time helped you to grow as a person, or what has it taught you about yourself?
I think the biggest thing is, you know, I was just talking about this with my video guy the other day, is I think that in North America, we really get programmed into this rat race where if we have a moment where we're not sprinting, you have this overwhelming guilt, inside of you that you should be working harder. And especially when you're an entrepreneur or an indie artist, it always feels like there's that pressure there. So I'm trying to learn that it's okay to take a breath and to just take a minute and let the world inspire you, or, just do something that fills you up a little bit, and that's really hard for me. I'm working on that, but a lot of like superficial things too. I'm learning French, and I'm working on learning a lot more about production and being a better producer. And yeah, so I think I've always got a little bit of a project trying to better myself. And I think that's something that becomes more important as you get a little older too. I'm finding that I never thought about these things in my 20s, but now I'm really trying to think about how I can learn something every day.
It's one thing that I say is it's as soon as you stop learning, you're probably not breathing.
Yeah, well, I think it's important, man, and this French thing has been interesting because I've played in France a lot, and I love playing in Quebec. I love Quebecers, so I'm really trying to like do my best to be I call it a better Canadian, just being able to communicate with another 8 million people that are in this country. And it's tough. It's hard to learn that stuff as a grown up, but I'm really enjoying it though.
Hey, Quebec has a lot of diehard music fans too.
So many good country fans, and I don't think a lot of the country knows that. Like it's amazing. Like Matt Lang is a friend of mine, and he's a big star out in Quebec, and it's crazy how much people love that guy. You go there and he's a superstar.
Mm-hmm.
So I always try to rub shoulders with Matt when I'm in Quebec as much as I can.
Shout out to Matt Lang, a former guest of the show. And of course, it's like you mentioned, it's like an artist can actually sustain themselves like fairly well off of an entire, like just out of Quebec alone.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And it's just a beautiful part of Canada's history. I'm a big history nerd, and I think that it's something we should really embrace and enjoy because they have so much to offer.
Mm-hmm. The architecture too is.
Yeah, it's Canada's tiny Europe.
Absolutely. Absolutely, my friend. I have had an incredible time chatting here with you today about this new single, Girls Drink Beer, and of course, everything else that we've dove into here today. I need to thank you one last time, Dan, for joining us here today on the DTP.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. It's been a real pleasure.
Desert Tiger Podcast.